Welcome back to the Gone for 10 show. It's your host, Larry, and with me, as always, is my unofficial Twitter brother, the Tony Rosina. Tony, how you doing, mate?
Good. How are you, the Larry Taylor?
I am the happiest man on earth. Can you believe the Bulldogs won their match yesterday? Scintillating football match, by the way.
I think I only had about 4 naps for about 80 minutes, so it was a very good game to watch, especially on a Sunday night.
Look, sporadic naps are good for the body. But anyway, we're not here to talk about your sleeping pattern. We're here to talk about 10 things that we have learnt throughout round one of the NRL season. Round one is officially in the books. Now, make sure if you are new here that you do hit that subscribe button and you are liking the video, because if you don't like it, Tony, if you don't like the video, if you don't subscribe, what happens?
You're going for 10, mate. You can go for 10.
You go for 10, and we don't want that. So make sure you're doing those two things. But Tony, let's not waste any more time. I'm going to rip in straight with number one of what we learnt after round one. Penrith Panthers setting the standard, absolutely demolishing Manly Seagulls, 28-6. No Nathan Cleary, no problem. Young O'Sullivan at halfback in his debut game, dominated. Seamless transition. Thoughts?
Yeah, it was obviously, I don't know if it's more of a praise to Penrith or a worry for Manly, because you come out there without a Nathan Cleary, and we've seen them suffer in the past, and this young kid just went out there, took control of the game, and really upstaged Daly Cherry Evans, if I'm being honest.
He did, but not just that. The Penrith pack steams through the Manly side, and where I think this game, where I think the Panthers really did get on top, and let me know if you agree here, it was the back five for me. Panthers, every time on the kick chase, and I didn't think Manly's kicking game was awful, by the way, but I just thought that was the difference. When we spoke about the Manly side in our season preview, we said they're really strong in the spine, but the concern is, do they have enough strike power across the park? And I think that was the difference here. You saw Brian To'o making meters like he always does. Stephen Crichton, Dylan Edwards returning, look good at fullback. They're just their meterage, or their ability to make meters in those early tackles, absolutely crucial. Gives the forwards a breather so then they can do their thing. And what do you think? Penrith Panthers, premiership favourites, fair to say?
Oh, I think definitely. Obviously, it's hard to read into what you see in round one. Obviously, you need at least a month of football to see how every team's going to do. But based on last year, based on how they just tore apart Manly, and how they neutralised Tommy Trbojevic, the most explosive player from last year, I think they've got to be favourites in my books.
Yeah, I think in everyone's books. Let's move on to what we learnt. Number two, South Sydney on the slope. Now, maybe that's me being a little bit harsh, or some might say a little bit cynical. I didn't like what I saw. I just think the red and greens really failed to get any sort of hold of the game, really struggled to control the game. Funnily enough, against Adam Reynolds' new side, who are without Adam Reynolds. But South's just no direction, a little bit engineless. What did you make of their performance?
Oh, I thought it was quite poor, and it's obviously not a bad thing for South Sydney to obviously get it handed to them in round one, but it does ask you questions about how their recruitment went with letting go of Reynolds. Like, we're starting to see how much of a loss he was. Does the rookie have the chance to control his team? I just don't know if he has it in him to take control and lead them to arguably that premiership that they want to fight for.
Ilias, yeah, look, it was a lot of responsibility. I'm never one to write a young kid off, but I think this is what the issue will be when you bring in a young half. There's always that risk. And he might go on to have a wonderful NRL career. But the other thing we cannot understate here, the loss of Wayne Bennett. That's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure for South Sydney to see how they go this year. But we will see. Time will tell. But I got to say, early signs, look, I still think as it stands, they're a top 8 team. Latrell Mitchell to come back in, of course, but early signs are not good. But we continue moving. So what did we learn? Number 3. And I've lost my notes. Here we go. Jeez, I'm struggling here. Anyway, you know what? I'm just going to freelance this one. Can we just talk about the Bulldogs. I'm just going to go straight to the Bulldogs. Fighting for Trent Barrett, because I thought yesterday's performance was absolutely brilliant. Dogs of War, like the banner says. I didn't think it was brilliant football. I didn't think from the halves, I didn't see a dominating display by any means. But what I did see was the grit was back. The Dogs of War were back. They defended their line tremendously. Granted, the Cowboys didn't throw a whole heap at them, but the boys from Belmore, considering they had no substitutes left, including an 18th man being brought on, I thought this was it could be a season-defining result, this.
Yeah, obviously this could be obviously you want to talk season defining. This could keep Trent Barrett in the job, really. This is the game that we said, of that 6, the Bulldogs have to win. They've gone out, they've won the game. It was horrible conditions. It was hot, then it was raining. They've played those conditions. Like you said, they had that grit. They held their line. And I think what was important from this game, Larry, is this is a Bulldog side that was behind for most of that game. They stayed behind, and they still had that fight and belief to get the win. And I don't think you see that last year out of this team.
100%. And that's what I loved about this performance. There were times in that game where I said, if this was last year's side, guaranteed they'd be down by 3 tries. But they showed up again and again. Dufty with a try saver just to the west of the left post. And I got to admit, when we saw the last minute try, I was not happy. I was saying some absolute expletives. But in saying that, the right call, Tebow was offside, and the hammer got hammered. Tough luck for the Cowboys, who I think, like I said, will get the spoon this year. Maybe a bold prediction, maybe not, but we will carry on. Mitchell Moses primed for a big year. I was really impressed with the Lebanese international. I thought Parramatta, look, it was a high-scoring game, but it was one of those games, wasn't it? You always, sometimes these sorts of things happen. Titans made a good account of themselves, and I think they will be competitive this year. But I like what I saw from Mitchell Moses.
Yeah, obviously Moses, especially in that first half, definitely took control of that game, and he definitely got Parramatta on the front foot. I think the more worrying thing is you can't get into I guess you want to call it a slingshot with the Titans. They've got the youth. They'll play corner flag to corner flag, and we kind of saw him get into that battle. But then in the second half, Moses kind of stepped up, and yes, the Titans made mistakes, but Moses stepped up, slowed the game down when he had to. And if he can continue and they can get Dylan Brown back into the halves with him, he is in for a big season.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Melbourne Storm. Lesson number 5. Storm injury crisis. They won the battle against the West Tigers, running out 26-16 victors after falling behind, but they might have lost the war. They're coming out of this game very sore and sorry. George Jennings, we assume ACL injury, so season. Brendan Smith, some sort of shoulder injury. He'll be out for an extended period of time. And Christian Walsh, State of Origin prop forward, Queensland enforcer, predicted ruptured Achilles. That's his season gone for sure as well. How did the Storm look to you? I've got to admit, and looking at the game, Tigers, I think a lot of us have said, probably wooden spoon contenders. Storm didn't look good, and these injuries just rub salt into the wound.
Yeah, obviously, I will jump in quickly. There's a fractured hand for Brendan Smith. His arm's in a sling just to keep it a bit instability. Obviously, the injuries don't help. I think if you look at their forward pack when we're coming into this season, we're already saying it's a bit thin after you come off that starting / the bench. So to lose a few players this early into the season, it is a bit of a worry. But like we said, it is Melbourne. They don't really have other clubs that can touch their juniors up there. So they'll be going out there. They'll be looking for loan deals if they can get players in. They'll be looking to their reserves, to their feeder clubs. And you don't know. Like, obviously, they lose Brendan Smith. They lose Christian Wells. They lose George Jennings. They bring in, obviously, Cameron Munster back into the squad. So I think give it 2 or 3 weeks, we might start to see these injuries start to pay a toll. But I think for the early couple of days, they should be all right.
We shall see. Lesson number 6, your Roosters. They're not flawless. The Roosters aren't flawless. Talk to me. What went wrong?
You know what? It'd be really easy for me to sit here and just say we played shit. And we did to an extent, but I think a lot of credit has to go to the Knights. They obviously took that 6 months in the off-season they really revved themselves up and they had a point to prove. Maybe they listened to the podcast and they heard me talk shit and put him in that bottom 4. Maybe that's what fired him up, Larry. I don't know. We said we'd probably have egg on my face, and well, here I am. But it's one of those things where obviously we have half partners that have never played with each other. They switched the sides of Crichton. We just look lackluster, and I don't know if that's because they haven't played many games in preseason because they rested a lot, but I do expect us to bounce back. And obviously, without getting too controversial, that first obstruction, if that's a try, which most commentators have said it should have been, it's probably a completely different game.
While I agree with you, tough for the Sydney Roosters. Don't like the Eastern Sydney boys. Can I ask you though? The Newcastle Knights. You predicted they'd finish 14th. I sat here and I said to you, that forward pack, Kalen Ponga, there's a lot of brilliance there. Given not just the fact that they won against Premiership contenders, but the way they won, complete ascendancy in the forward pack. Are you sticking with your prediction?
I think I've got to see at least a month of football before I make that decision. At least 3. Like, if you look at the Roosters, hold on. If you look at the Roosters, you could have said the same thing about the Tigers in 2018. They came out, they beat the Roosters 10-4. The Roosters were premiership favourites. The Tigers were wooden spoon favourites. They dominated us in that game. They came in the bottom 4. We won the premiership. So it's hard to tell after one game. I'm sticking to it. I still think Newcastle are one injury away from their season being in absolute tatters, but I'll move that little prediction in about 4 weeks when I see him do it constantly.
Oh, I think you don't have a clue. Let's talk about the Brisbane Broncos. The Broncos have their grip back. Lesson number 7. I like what I saw from the Brisbane side. A tough, low-scoring game, probably what they needed. There was talk coming out this week that some of the senior members of the squad had suggested to Brisbane coach Kevin Walters that training had been just a little bit too intense and maybe to back off a little bit. Now, from the outside looking in, you say the teams that go hard are the ones who win premierships, but it seems the advice paid off. Strong performance against the Rabbitohs, keeping them to 4 points. Now, we already touched on it earlier. Souths weren't impressive, but you got to say credit where it's due to the Broncos. Again, showing a grit this season that they probably wouldn't have displayed last season.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, we've already spoke about Adam Reynolds, so we won't go too much into that. This was a team also missing Tom Flegler, who was huge for them last year. He didn't play in this game. Heverington didn't play in this game, yet they still had that grit to hold players out. And this was a South Sydney team that was in the final last year. So I think it's happy days if you're a Brisbane fan. And with Adam Reynolds coming back into that squad, it could be a good start to the season.
Indeed. Moving on. Dragons slay the Warriors. And the lesson I've got here, Dragons will slay. Warriors, same old thing. But in saying that, the Dragons, I've got to say, I really like their performance here. I thought they showed their experience. They played like an experienced side.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, that man right there on the screen, Ravalawa, he's got to be one of the most deadly players in his position when he gets anywhere within 10 meters of the line.
Is he what?
In defense, in attack, he's solid. Obviously, he has those silly mistakes. He had a few drop balls, but if he's scoring me 2 to 3 tries a game and he's dropping the ball once or twice, I think I can live with that if I'm a Dragons fan.
What about Sivo? If you had to choose your preferred winger, would you be going Ravalawa or would you be going Sivo, Parramatta?
I think I've been taking Ravalawa. I think
Really?
In defense and attack, he offers slightly more to a team than what Sivo does, especially injury-wise.
Defensively, potentially, Sivo with the ball is indestructible. I'm not too sure if I agree with you on that one. But nonetheless, touching on this theme, lesson number 9, same old Warriors. While the Dragons were good, the Warriors were bad. And again, another team that comes out sore and sorry after this. Sean Johnson looks like he will miss 4 weeks already with a pectoral strain. Where did it go wrong for the Kiwis?
I think they tried to get into and like we said, a Titans are good at this. They tried to get into a slingshot where we're going to score a try, we're going to let you score a try, we're going to try and defend. And in the end, they just got outrun by, I guess we spoke about a Dragon side that's brought in experience. They know how to kill games off now and the perfect blend of youth who are going to excite teams. So if you get into a battle with this Dragons side, you're going to come out sore. And unfortunately for the Warriors, they've lost obviously Johnson and the 2 points in the making.
And our final and 10th lesson for round 1, the Sharks will take time. Canberra ran out victors like we both predicted, to be honest. Now, when it comes to the season end, I think you and I both have the Sharks finishing higher than the Green Machine. But not a bad performance from Cronulla, but one where you say, you know what, in about 5 to 6 weeks, they'll look better.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, it didn't help, obviously, with Craig Fitzgibbon not being able to be there, missing a few training sessions. That never helps when you lose your coach. They then had the shuffle and Brent Ikavalu in that hadn't played much minutes with this squad. So I still think the Sharks might take a bit of time, but they'll definitely be there or thereabouts in that 6 to 8 come the end of the season.
Were you more impressed with the Raiders? Did you think the Raiders were good here? Or do we look at it from the other lens and say, actually, the Sharks with their coach there with a bit more time probably run away with that game?
I think if this game was in, say, round 6 or 7, I think the Sharks run away with it. But like you said, it was like we said in our previous show, it was kind of on a knife's edge. If this was played in Cronulla, we probably both would have been leaning towards Cronulla. But having been in Canberra, we know how the Raiders play. I think it's a bit of Raiders played decent football. The Sharks just aren't there just yet.
Can I say, Nickel Klokstad, what a player. Seriously, he is so good. I think he would walk into most NRL sides, and he's proven to be a really good fullback for the Canberra Raiders. But that wraps us up. Tony, give me a prediction. What are we going to learn next week?
I think we're going to learn that the Roosters are going to bounce back against Manly. The Dogs are going to play a bit better. They're going to get their attack right, but I think they will fall to Reynolds. So there will be more questions asked of Bennett. And we might see that Penrith are that dominant force that are favourites to go back-to-back.
Dogs versus Broncos. I think that'll be a really good game to watch, considering how both teams came out. Similar victories, too, it must be said, in round 1. So we'll definitely watch with a close eye. But I hope you've enjoyed that video. Make sure, like we said, if you are new here, you do subscribe. This is the new, the up-and-coming, the most dominant, most prolific, the best rugby league show in all of the universe. Make sure you like the video as well. And Tony, if you don't do it, what happens? What happens?
You're going for 10. You're going for 10, mate. You're going for 10.
You know what? It's going to be a harsher punishment. For now, we'll be going for 10. Later, will be we're going to send you. And after that, I don't know. We'll have to think of something fairly painful and gruesome. But nonetheless, Tony, thanks for joining me.
Cheers, mate. Good to be here.
Cheers, mate. And we'll see you soon. We'll obviously do a season preview. No, season preview. Season's already started. We'll give you a round 2 preview to come. And I may have a special guest lined up later this week for the Bulldogs fans. So keep an eye out for that. Tony, pleasure as always. And I'll be chatting to you soon. Cheers.